Good morning. This is Debra V. Wilson. It's the 28th of April 2018, Saturday. The time is 1000 hours and 47 minutes, and that's GMT minus 6. And I am in Winnipeg, Manitoba, in Canada. Radicalization, the action or process of causing someone to adopt radical positions on political or social issues. That's the definition, in a Google search of the word radicalization, that's the definition that popped up. I think it's very important when looking at radicalization uh, to have an expansive view of it, to assign meanings, to assign the word to persons and activities beyond a specific identity, aka Muslim. I think it is easy and expected that if a person has the identity of Muslim and their behavior is aberrant, to assign the word radical to their behavior. Radicalize. I think it's also important to understand that while the ways in which radicalization might manifest itself, to understand that the process of radicalization and the ways in which it looks are actually on a spectrum that are not unique to one identity. I am specifically thinking about the van attack in Toronto on the 23rd of April, 2018. The investigation is new and still ongoing. The group that was brought up that the alleged perpetrator may have an affiliation with is called incel. Briefly speaking, I would define the group as a clustering of individuals who share a belief system around toxic narratives of male identity. I think it's important to again understand that radicalization operates on a spectrum, and its manifestation is not limited to a particular identity. I think if we seek to understand what causes radicalization for one particular identity, we need a more panoramic view and understanding of radicalization in its various manifestations, how different identities can and are sometimes radicalized. In addition to understanding radicalization on a spectrum, we continue to need to understand the power of social media, or aka strength in numbers. Social media offers the ability for even the most aberrant of constructs of reality to become normalized through the process of finding other people online who also have internalized an aberrant construct of reality. That is not limited to persons who are extremists and also Muslim. I look forward to the continual understanding by this state and citizens in understanding the myriad of ways in which radicalism happens and is experienced by various identities. I look forward to a thorough, speedy, and ethical investigation of the very recent Toronto van attacks. And in closing, again, my thoughts, prayers, and sympathies are with the people who lost their lives and all those who are connected to them in their time of grief and sorrow. This is Debra V. Wilson. I am in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and it is the 28th of April 2018, and the time is now 1000 hours and 53 minutes, and again, that's GMT minus 6. Thank you. Good morning, this is Debra V. Wilson. It is Thursday, the 15th of February, 2018. The time is 500 hours and 5 minutes, that's GMT minus 6, and I am in Winnipeg, Manitoba, in Canada. This morning's short podcast is around defining what is terrorism. You will be well aware of the recent and tragic mass shooting in Florida, yet another one. Yet another school shooting, yet another mass shooting in America. On the 6th of November 2017, I did a video, a podcast around mass shootings in America and asking again, what is and how do we define terrorism? I think it's very important for security services collectively to look at and understand global trends of terrorism and extremism. I also think it's equally important and necessary for security services collectively to understand how global trends of extremism and terrorism manifest themselves in the specific space called their country. I think that's of paramount importance. I have for many years, and I continue to maintain that one of the largest, more persistent forms of extremism in the USA is actually mass shootings and the various ways in which they manifest themselves. I think there are a myriad of reasons for mass shootings in America. One of the more obvious reasons is the availability of guns in the U.S. But I also think, and I am looking at from my research, the ways in which hyper-toxic masculinity manifests itself globally and how it presents itself in incidents that we refer to as terrorism. So I ask again, and I question again, after yet another tragedy of mass shootings, how actually is extremism and terrorism manifesting itself in the USA? How and why are mass shootings referred to as mass shootings and not as extremism? And what connections, if any, can we make about the toxic construct of gender identities, how they might present themselves in acts of violence, organized violence, or extremism, or terrorism? I will attach the video I did in the 6th of November 2017 along with this video. It's something I'm working on now with my research. It is
something that I've questioned for many years now. I do not dispute that there is global extremism. I do not dispute that many countries experience extremism. What I do dispute and I do question is how extremism is being defined and how it is, and I question why it isn't being contextualized within a specific country. And then I wonder if we did contextualize organized violence, mass shootings, street gangs, would the continuum then become more clear for us? Those are questions I'm looking at in my research. But for the moment, my condolences to the people of Florida. I am very sorry for what has happened. Take a listen to my podcast, Think, Listen, Learn, and Engage. This is Debra V. Wilson, and I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and that's in Canada. Thank you. Good afternoon. This is Debra V. Wilson. It is Monday, the 6th of November, 2017, and the time is 1200 hours and 43 minutes, and that's GMT minus 6. By now you've heard of yet the latest mass shooting in the U.S. This time, unfortunately, it's the Sutherland Spring Church in Texas. To date, the last confirmed deceased is 26. Each and every time I hear of these incidents, I am saddened, heartbroken, my fear level increases, but also I ask, as a Muslim, why is this not defined as terror? And initially, we already have a statement from President Trump saying this is about mental illness. That led me to this podcast, and I'd like to read one page from my podcast. Surely the politics in all of this is that even in the abyss of mental illness, there is a gendering in the expressions of both pain and violence. That is the politics that must be understood. That is why I believe in these mass shootings, there is a need to name and understand the hubris and arrogance that is in part fueling the overwhelmingly toxic white male privilege that leads to mass shootings in America. And to expand on my hypothesis, I believe there is an argument to be made that some violence emerging from Muslim men, and for the moment I'm focusing on men, is no different in its origin than white American men who engage in mass shootings. And both phenomena are expressions of criminality that have emerged from a highly toxic and distorted construct of the performance of heterosexual male identity. Terror is terror. Thank you very much. And this is Debra V. Wilson.